Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. It is the last video of the year, or this is the last video of the year, and I thought I would mark the occasion by giving you uh, something I promised about 4 months ago, when in a previous video where I presented my own conlang, or constructed language, I said I was working on a video on pan-Europeanism. And, well, I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but this is basically that video. This is basically my video on pan-Europeanism, which has somewhat morphed into my look into to my personal idea for what a European federalization project would look like, and therefore what it you know what a United States of Europe would actually look like, how it would work, etc. So that is the point of this video, and I have this map here as you know as a little bit of eye candy, first of all, and second of all as a demonstration aid. And the first thing I want to talk about, when talking about the United States of Europe, is defining the borders of this new state. As you can see, there are a bunch of places here in white, and others that are in gray. The white is what is typically considered Europe, and this is my base for the geographic limitation for the geographic limits of the United States of Europe. However, I do have some changes that I would like to suggest. First of all, the Russian border here. Yeah, I think it's mostly correct going down to Urals. However, I would want the borders of the United States of Europe to go around Kazakhstan. So no part of Kazakhstan is in the United States of Europe. Also, out of the United States of Europe will be the Caucasus nations. So they're not here either, nor is Cyprus, which is already grayed out here, even though it is a EU member. Also, no part of Turkey either. Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe Turkey can get some Greek islands in exchange for, in exchange for losing, uh, uh, this part of this part of its land. But anyway, those are the physical borders. There are nevertheless some administrative borders to consider, because plenty of nations here hold former uh, colonial territories outside. For the sake of the United States of Europe, those holdings are no longer held. They are now, they are now fully independent and sovereign, and operate on their own. I wonder how effectively Siberia will deal without Moscow. For my money, I think the answer would be quite well. And I can pretty safely say that some of France's former holdings would be, will be a little bit better, will be a little bit better off without it. Um, now that we've established the physical limits, it's time to talk about a little bit about population geography. Namely, the fact that within the limits I've drawn, the population of Europe would still be around 730 to 740 million people. So how do you make sure that the United States of Europe represents everyone fairly? Because yes, I am still considering making this country a typical modern country with three branches of government and stuff. So nothing like nothing like a feudal monarchy or something like that. It could still be a monarchy. More on that later. Anyway, as I was saying, 730 to 740 million people exist within the borders as I've defined them. So how would they be politically represented? Well, my idea is that um, the government should be, as I said, three branches, and the legislative branch should consist of a bicameral bicameral assembly. So we have a lower house and an upper house. The lower house would consist of 1,000 people, because I think that's a number that is both big enough to represent everyone, but also small enough to not be too chaotic. And that representation would mainly be proportional, with each representative, each representative representing somewhere between 740 and 750 thousand citizens. And the voting barriers, or the electoral districts, would be defined by each of the United States of Europe individually. And so as long as there are so as long as each uh, uh, so as long as each electoral district has many people as it is supposed to, within each of the within each European state, then then it should all be fine. That being said, there are 7 countries: Iceland, Luxembourg, Andorra, Liechtenstein, Malta, San Marino, and the Vatican, that have a population smaller than that. So what do you do with those? There are 2 options here. Either either they are combined with some other nation in order to give them some degree of representation, or they take on the same function as observer states do within the UN, where they can get to send a representative who will advocate on their behalf and so on, but they don't really get to vote on any of the actual don't get to actually participate in the legislative process. It's arguably not too different from how these nations currently relate to the European Union, but it is but it is still something I wanted to have defined. So so as to make sure there's no there's no ambiguity moving forward. That's the lower chamber of the legislature. The top chamber would consist of representatives from each of these member nations, including the including the small 7 that I've listed earlier. And those would function to some extent. Maybe they wouldn't be able to emit laws, but they would be able to veto or correct various laws. So kind of similar to what the European Commission does. Unlike with the European Commission, where one veto is enough to scrap a legal initiative, within the United States of Europe, however, it would take a mathematical majority to to veto a law. Also, unlike the European Union, I want the United States of Europe to have a head of state. One could argue, some could argue that the European Union has a head of government in the president of the Commission, and the president of the Commission. However, however, I want there to be a formal position as the head of state. I'll talk about the head of government a little bit later. The head of state could be a monarch, but I'm leaning more towards towards it being a president, because because the monarch will almost automatically always have some money spent on their holdings, and between spending money on monarchical holdings and spending money for an election, not only would I prefer spending money on an election, I'm pretty sure 70% of the population of the United States of Europe would prefer to spend on elections. I would accept a monarch if both categories of costs would be eliminated, that means that said monarch would have to, would have to accept that their assets would become their assets would become nationalized, which in turn would lead to which would arguably lead to a loss of prestige for the position. However, to be honest, a monarch doesn't really need any prestige in terms of holdings, because what makes them important is is their word and their capability of leadership. And having holdings doesn't really positively impact that. And in fact, I would say that having them nationalized and being kept in the and being kept by custodians, archivists, historians, etc., would make could potentially make the monarch a better leader, because because they would have a uh, so to speak a physical legacy that they have the physical legacy that they would consider that they would consider as they make their legal decisions, and they would have to make those decisions based both on what would benefit them as a civil servant and what would benefit holdings as um, their holdings uh, as properties of the general European administration. The uh, the actual political power, however, would not lie within the head of state, who would basically have whose main powers would be diplomatic, representing the nation in various situations, legislative insofar as they can give a veto, and military, and also in case of war, they can take on the position of commander in chief. However, when it comes to the day-to-day aspects of running a government, it would be, that those powers would very much the person who would hold most of the um, relevant powers would in fact be the prime minister, and more broadly their ministerial cabinet. I already have a video on how I think a ministerial cabinet should be put together, so I'm not going to go into that. But I will go a little bit more into the interactions between prime minister and president, uh, because even though I see, because even though one of them is technically uh, is technically the leader of the other, given that the uh, given the given that the president is is the head of state, and is the head of state, whereas the prime minister is simply the head of government. And I think it should be easier to depose the president than it is to depose the ministerial cabinet. Also, there would be more. There would have more prerogatives in terms of what it is that. Also, the prime minister would have more prerogatives in terms of what they would be required to do, and what the means to accomplish those tasks. Would be. As for the rest of the institutions, they would basically be an amalgamation of the institutions the EU put in place, and also various other broader European projects, such as Interpol and EHRC, all integrated within this governmental structure, and therefore exercising the various laws that have been put in place by the that have been decided upon by the assembly, and also approved of by the president. And there would also and also there would be a continual round of consultation and analyses that that the members of the government would be required to to show that they have to show that they have taken part and they have taken part in and have uh, dynamicized. Or maybe not dynamicized, but proven that they have and that they responded to the various situations to the extent to which a response is necessary. So, yeah, those are basically my suggestions for what for the United States of Europe should look like. I've it's been a little bit of a shorter video. I hope you've enjoyed it regardless. If you've if you found my if you've enjoyed my presentation or found it useful, well then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If you have anything to add, either to the idea of the project in and of itself or to how I've chosen to implement it, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I just realized I didn't mention anything about the judicial branch, but that's because I think that branch should be entirely technocratic. So the Chief Justice of the European Supreme Court, for example, would be appointed by the would be appointed the same way the Pope is appointed, as in by their peers, not from not from the outside, unless maybe to break a deadlock. Otherwise, the various member states of the of the of this new federal nation have their own autonomous structures that would that would function as normal. So very much this government that I've painted would really only handle the large scale the large scale pan-European questions that that would result from their general activity. And yeah, that was now I'm fully done. I also have a main channel where I talk mainly about book-related questions. A link to which you can find in the description down below. If you want to hear more about me talking about a variety of other topics, then I suggest you stay on this channel and go for my extensive backlog. You're bound to find pretty much anything you'll consider, including a lot of more recent political stuff. And yeah, that is really all I have to say. So, and if none of these options interest you, then I suggest you go ahead and do whatever you want the rest of your day, because it is your day after all. And Happy New Year. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.